Hello, everyone. Glad you're here with me again. We're going to take a look at cloud computing today and cloud safety. So, once again, we end up with this term cloud, which is really cool. It's a cool name to describe the internet. And so it really is. It's really just another term for the internet, except it tends to lean itself to just these things that you see on the screen. I don't know if you've seen them, but there's shirts and bumper stickers and stuff that are available that basically say there is no cloud. It's just someone else's computer, which is true. So your data is being stored on servers out there. You can do all of these things on these servers. The backbone of this is being able to have internet fast enough. So this concept of doing it this way has been around for decades. And it slowly matured up until the time that things got fast enough. Our connections to the internet, even off of our phones, are so fast that we can run software from the cloud and it appears on our device. And the same thing with applications. And when we hit save in that application, it stores that data out there on some server. And they're not normally actually all in one place. They can be spread across the globe. Your data storage may be in Kentucky while the apps are actually being served out in California. It's a massive thing. And so this term cloud really describes a subset of the internet, but you could say, oh, I'm on the cloud, and that would pretty much mean the same thing as I'm on the internet. And again, the reason it's called a cloud is because when networking people decided to describe things to management, people who didn't really understand networking, they would get to the point where it's like, okay, well, this is where we connect to the internet. And instead of writing the word internet, they would just draw a cloud because that's really fast and easy. And then pretty soon it was like, oh, we connect to this cloud. And it just became, a phenomenon. It just became the way we look at things. So, of course, we really want to know about safety. What do we really have to do to keep our information safe out there in these online accounts that we're using? All right, so our unit overview, we're going to look at some storage, different types of things you can do on the cloud. For instance, file storage, backups, which you may just use the file storage as your backup, but there's actually also the ability to back up. Of course, the cloud and the internet as a whole provides great collaboration, and we'll look at how that can get us into trouble and how to really manage your accounts that basically you're providing a certain amount of security and so are they. So each has to do their part. If you're using all of Google stuff and you got G Drive and Gmail and Sheets and all that, there's certain things you have to do to make sure that you're protecting your stuff, and there's certain things they have to do so they make sure they're protecting your stuff. And of course, what really is the problem is misconfigurations on their end, weak account policies on our end, and it really can lead to exposures in your data. And we're going to emphasize whatever practical strategies that we can dealing with your account and data. And of course, I'll have a whole video that really digs in deeper in that. We'll look at different cloud services and how you deal with the settings in those in that video. But I am going to show you a little bit in this video, just a little. All right, here's our primary topics. Syncing risks and what in the heck is that? That kind of stuff. Third-party apps, we're going to hit that one. That's one. Basically, what I'm saying is, hey, these are some things that you probably are not aware of, account recovery and all that. A lot of this other you are. How do you back stuff up and so on, and using a public link and that kind of thing. So if you'd like to pause, this is our learning objectives, 1 and 2. And let's dig in. Let's dig into what is the cloud? Well, it's really remote servers that store and process your data over the internet rather than sitting on a local device. So again, the backbone of this is to have fast internet. There are places in this world they don't use cloud computing because it's not fast enough for that location. So here at EAC, a good example would be having a cloud backup of the student information system, but the student information system being kept local for speed and ability that that provides. And that's kind of a hybrid cloud. That's where you got stuff in two different places or multiple places. And those servers can be spread across, like I said, just about anywhere. Now, operated by providers, meaning that you don't just attach to the internet and all of a sudden you have cloud computing and there it is, and cloud storage and cloud apps. You don't have that. You have to go to somebody who provides it. And they list Amazon last. However, Amazon is the biggest provider of this. It's called Amazon AWS or AWS, which is Amazon Web Services. Amazon was so ambitious about what they were trying to do. Have books, have movies, have music, and then they expanded from there, as you know. Well, nobody really made a product that fit their need, so they invented it. And it was so good that lots of other places, lots of other businesses use it. So they are a major, major provider. Microsoft is as well. But from our point of view, like I want to go and use some of this stuff like a cloud backup or whatever. Then we're dealing with Google, Microsoft, and Apple. Usually that's what we're dealing with. And mostly because these are tied to our phones. And this one is tied usually very strongly in business because you're using Windows at work. And of course, those are accessed through an online account, meaning a user ID and a password, which is normally your email, and then a password that goes along with that. That is what they're saying here. So how do we access cloud? Well, if you got Apple, then you've got iCloud and you've got all their apps that go with that. If you've got Microsoft, which you do because you're taking a class from EAC right now, then you have Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and it's all offered through a web browser. And that's a main thing to understand is that when you say, oh, I'm going to use this provider, then majorly you're going to Chrome or you're going to Edge or you're going to Safari, and then you access those apps, that site that has your files through the web browser. That's key when you're dealing with cloud. Now, it doesn't always have to be that way. I have Microsoft apps. I'm using one right here. So I've got PowerPoint right here. This file is coming from the cloud. It's coming from a location that I have out online. And so when it saves it to that online location. But I'm using an app right here on the computer. Yeah, I could actually pull it up. I could pull PowerPoint up in a browser and see it that way too. But of course, the desktop app has a lot more features, and that's why I do it this way. All right, before we get to those other details that go along with that, let's take a look at our shared responsibility. You have to you have to make sure the password is a good password. And you have to deal with the data and sharing settings within that cloud service. So they give you the ability to go in and say, I want to share this. I don't want to share it. Oops, I still have that shared. It shouldn't be shared anymore. That kind of thing. You deal with that. But you got to make sure also that, your password that you're using is really good, that it's not something that's too easy to guess. The provider secures the infrastructure, the access to the buildings, access to hackers trying to get on the servers or in the networks, that kind of stuff. That's what they secure. And of course, we're hoping that their people on the inside are not just going through people's files, right? That's another thing that's often not talked about, but somebody can get into all that stuff in Google or in Microsoft or in Apple. Somebody can get into that. They're there and they can see all that stuff. So we're hoping that they're not doing that as well. And many breaches do happen, normally because of mistakes, not really provider failures, because it's really kind of a let's put all our eggs in one basket deal. So if you're Apple, then you're focused on making sure that that facility where this is coming in and out of is secure at every layer. So not just physically secure that people can't just walk in, but the network is secure. The apps are programmed correctly. They're taking care of all that. And because people are getting paid to do it, they're concentrating on that. They're making it really good. So what we're really trying to say is there's a lot of breaches that happen, and that's usually due to user mistakes. It's not that there aren't breaches that just never happen. You'll hear about them. Google will get breached, and Microsoft and Apple, they'll all get breached. Amazon gets breached. And they're big breaches, like this many users were exposed, this kind of data was exposed. It's not like it doesn't happen. It just happens a lot more through us. There's a lot of users and we make mistakes. All right, multi-factor authentication comes in again, making sure that you turn that on. A lot of online resources just require you to just log in. Your user ID and your password is all you need. And they then recommend to you, look, you need to turn on multi-factor authentication or two-factor authentication so that we can make sure that somebody hasn't hacked your password and is just getting in. So if you haven't done that, and again, the way you would know is you just log in. I think Google forces you now, and Apple does too. Microsoft, I'm not sure. Mine's set up that way, but I'm not sure if they force you to. It's been too long. But yeah, if you go and you say, oh, let's use Yahoo as an example. I got an old Yahoo email. They didn't force me to set up two-factor. I did, but I could just type in a user ID and a password and I'm logged in. So that means multi-factor authentication is not involved, or as they say, two-factor authentication. So make sure that's on. Make sure you get that done. Now, cloud backups, again, that is different than saying that I'm going to copy my files out there. And the reason I point this out is because it is a little tricky. Right now, as I said, this is actually out on the cloud, but I also have a local storage of this file. It's right there. And so you could say that's a backup. I have that file here and I have it out on the cloud. But there's also the ability to say, I want to back up this portion of my computer to the cloud. And as a matter of fact, Microsoft's been pushing that, like get a Microsoft account and then you can back up to the cloud. And again, that type of thing is done on our phones. Sorry, our phones all the time, where we say, oh no, go ahead and back this up to the cloud. It's like a de facto standard. And every so often, all the apps and definitely all your documents are taken, anything that you have that's unique, and it basically zips it all, puts it all into one file, and then backs it up to the cloud. That's different. That's different than saying I use iCloud and I can actually get to that picture right now on the cloud or on my device. So that's different. It's two types of backup, really, but it's nice. All right, so misconfigurations mean that usually, and it gets tricky here because a lot of people don't share anything off of their cloud. They just have the stuff that they do. Like maybe you have a spreadsheet that you use and you don't share it with anybody. And so when we start to talk about this, sometimes people are like, I don't understand what you're talking about, because they don't realize, oh yeah, you could take that file and you could go to sharing and you can put in somebody's email address and say, I want to share it with them. And it sends them a little email and says, so and so shared this file with you. And there's a link there and they click it and they can now edit the file. Did you ever turn that off, or does that person still have access to that file that they shouldn't have? All you need is the link. That's the problem. So exposure often occurs when users unintentionally make data accessible to anyone online. That sent an email to your friend and that has a link in it. Then their email gets exposed and that link gets pulled out. And then anybody that has that link can now see that file. So there's no security in that unless you force it to have security. And people don't realize that. And they're like, oh, we're working on this project. Here's my link. You got the link now. Let's go. And then, a year later, it's still out there. It's still being shared. And again, if that link gets exposed online, then anybody can access it. Ah, look at that. I was just talking about it. Links can be forwarded, also guessed or indexed. Now, indexed means if you are a hacker and you expose somebody's email, then you take that information and you dump it into a database that now is indexed online. And then somebody else can just simply search that up and find it. Now, guest is harder to do, but you can look at the email address and go, I see some similarities here. Let me see if I change this one number, if it'll pull up another file. And sometimes that's what hackers do. They just guess. They look at that long name up there and they're like, maybe if I change that. And then use public access only intentionally and temporarily. Microsoft actually has a way within their professional stuff that you can say, I'm going to share this for how long? And then it'll time it out after that, and you don't even have to worry about it. All right, risks of automatic cloud syncing. So, as I said, let me actually just pull that up. I got it right here. So here's my iCloud drive, and it is actually a location right on this computer. It's right on this, it's here. So I can actually just open things up. Now, my OneDrive here works the same way. So there's my OneDrive. I actually have my courses because obviously I use that folder all the time. This is this particular class, and I can just double click that and it will open on the other screen. Sorry, you can't see it. And the tools are in the way. Get out of here. You can't see those tools I'm dragging around, but they're annoying. So there's the file I opened. So what's happening here? Well, you can actually load on, sorry, I'm just trying to move it. You can actually load on software that allows you to synchronize the information on your cloud with a local storage. Of course, you got to have a lot of space. So if I've got, enough space on here, then I basically say, synchronize this OneDrive so I have it. I don't even have to be connected to the internet. I have the files I need. I just double click it, open it up. And then if I change something and hit save, later on, it syncs it back to the cloud. That's different. That's different than saying, oh, okay, in order to access my documents, sorry, jumping around here. In order to access my documents, I need to go to my OneDrive folder through a browser like Safari. So here's the same files. I can go to My Files, and I can go down to Courses, and there's the class that we're in, and those are all the same files that I'm looking at on my computer, and I can open them. I can just say, let's open that file. And it actually will open up PowerPoint right here in the browser, and there's the file. And I don't care, so I'm going to close it. So what I'm trying to show you is that this is synchronized with my computer because I downloaded this app from Microsoft, and I said, go ahead and log in and pull those files down and put them here on my computer. And you can even, fix it so it doesn't download it automatically. It just has like a little reference to each one of those. So if you don't have a ton of space, you could still do this, and you could still navigate your computer. And then when you double click one of those, instead of opening it immediately, it goes, oh, wait a minute, I got to download that. It downloads it and then opens it. So even if you don't have a lot of space, you can use it. But for me, I'm like, no, I want it all here. I've got the space. This is what I do all the time. So let's put it on here. And then when I save something, it'll synchronize it back. So what is it talking about? Sensitive files may sync to devices you forgot were connected. Ugh. What? Yeah. When I set all this up, when I set this software up right here, that will stay set up unless I tell it not to. So let's say I get a new computer and now it's time to get rid of this one. iCloud, it doesn't matter who it is, Google, whatever, they'll remember that that computer had access to this information. So I may say, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of this computer. So I'm going to disconnect this, which is great. I'll even uninstall that app, which is great. I'll delete all the files on the whole system, which is fantastic. But it still remembers that that computer had access, and that does leave a little opening for whoever gets that computer, or a hacker if they get that, to turn that back on. Now, it's not super likely it'll happen, but yeah, you may not even have gone that far. You may have just turned over your phone to one of your kids or whatever, and you forgot that it's actually still connected and it's syncing all those, meaning if that device is lost or exposed or hacked, those files are accessible off of that system, and that's a problem. Old shared devices may still have access, as I said, and updated data, and you need to review those connected devices periodically. So we'll take a look at that briefly and then in the other video longer. Account recovery. Backup email phone enabled account recovery if locked out. Helps prevent permanent loss of files or data. We talked about this a little bit. Actually, I'm not sure if you've seen that one yet, but we talked a little bit about that with Facebook and how some people get locked out of their account. It's exactly the same principle. You really need to make sure that you know, first off, two-factor authentication setup, your password is good and protected, and of course, you know what the email is. Many times they'll say, what's a backup email? So in other words, if you forgot and somehow closed that email account you were using to get into this, which is not a problem because it's its own separate login, right? But you need, oh, my two-factor authentication is not set up anymore. Please send me an email with a code in it. You don't have access to that email anymore. You don't have access to that phone anymore. That's a problem. So quite often, if you're dealing with any kind of cloud computing, storage, whatever, they will often say, hey, look, put in a backup email. Google does that. Google, of course, they want to know everything about you, but Google does say, what's a good backup email for you? And that's why they're asking, because if something gets screwed up, guess what? You're not getting a hold of their tech support. They're not going to help you figure that out. So if you get into that process and you're like, oh, dang it, I totally deleted that email. How am I going to? I mean, I can still log in here, but where's my two-factor authentication going? Yeah, that's a problem. So you always have another email account in there. In banking software, they'll say, what is your spouse's number? What's another number? And then usually you're going to say, I've got these three emails that I'm using, and these are the two phone numbers that you can contact me on. That way, if something gets messed up and you're trying to log in and they're like, oh, we're going to send it to this phone number. And you're like, I don't have that phone anymore. I got rid of it. I got a new number because of the special deal. What am I going to do now? Some strangers getting this two-factor authentication information. They're going, what the heck? And that information doesn't tell you what the account they're logging into, obviously. But yeah, if you had another number, then on that screen, it's going to say, you want us to send it to this? Oh, no, I don't have that one anymore. Send it to this backup one. Then that'll remind you to go in and change that. So lots of times people do not do this or keep this updated and going, and then they run into trouble. So you got to have a backup email phone enabled on that account recovery, just in case you get locked out. And that helps you prevent permanent loss of just not being able to get back in. And again, the reason why that's permanent loss, the bank will help you out, right? They'll help you out. But so many others like Google or Microsoft or Apple are just going to go, sorry, and you can't even contact anybody. So be careful. Then if you do have somebody take over, that's the other thing that could happen. You actually have a different option. You can go in there. This is how this works. Let me just explain real quickly. Let's say that you didn't have two-factor on. So somebody found your login and your password information in a data breach. So they go over to whatever this email program is, like there's lots of different web emails out there. So let's say it's Yahoo. So they put that in and now they lock you out. So they go and change the password. They then set up two-factor authentication to go to them, which you didn't have set up at all. So now how do you get that account back? Well, you can't. However, if they didn't change your backup emails, then you go in and you're like, whoa, my password's changed. Why is it asking me two-factor? And then you can say, look, I need you to send that two-factor to my backup email. And then when you get that, you can go put the two-factor in, and now you have control of the account again, and you can go in and change your password and everything on there. And then it's not catastrophic, basically. All right, third-party app permissions. So many things are linked today. Geez, it's one of those things. You go to one of these new AIs and they're like, you want to log in with your Google, your Apple, your Microsoft? What do you want to log in with? Your Amazon? And when you do that, when you say, yeah, I'm going to log in with my Amazon, it's actually sharing that data. So this third-party app is now basically checking things out with your Amazon account. So some apps during this process request unnecessary access to files, contacts, or account data. So during this process, and I just described one of them, not all of them, they'll say, I need access to this account in order to log in, or you said you wanted to do this fancy thing and you want to scour your Facebook, and so I need access to that. Then it's going to have access to other stuff that you may not want it to have access to. Then, of course, they may be compromised. So this app that you did a long time ago may be compromised, and you still are giving it access, or it's abandoned. It's not being used anymore. You don't use it anymore, and it's still sitting in there. And hackers will use that. They'll go and say, "Oh, this one app, lots of people used it, and nobody's doing anything with it anymore." And so they'll go through it and find a weakness, and now they can get into your stuff. So you want to make sure you revoke unused and unnecessary permissions. So you want to go to where this is and say, I don't want you in their app. I don't want you in their app. And you basically take away its ability to get in there and do things. And Facebook really is a good example because Facebook became this whole other cloud development platform for games and this little social questions and on and on and on. And people are like, oh, I really like that. Yeah, I'll go ahead and allow it. And they give them all these permissions. And then they don't realize, oh, I'm not playing that game anymore. I should probably go into where that is and disallow that app from doing that. Use strong, unique passwords, of course. Enable multi-factor. Review sharing settings regularly. Monitor your connected apps and the devices that those apps used to be set up on or are still on. And it's something that you have to do all the time. It's just something that needs to be done. So this is a good little review to go through to get the idea of what's happening. So watch the other video, get into all the screens in that. We're going to take a look at just one of them, two of them within Microsoft's. But pick one cloud account. Choose one that you have, and then make sure that two-factor is enabled on there, which is easy enough. And then find out, do you have a recovery email or phone number added? A lot of people do not. And you're prompted to put that in because they want it there. But a lot of people don't. And you may have been prompted and you typed in whatever and then moved on. So take a look at that. Review your sharing settings for one of your folders. Remove public links that you don't need anymore. Check connected devices and sign out, and then review third-party apps. Now, again, not every account has every single one of these. You definitely will have multi-factor. You definitely will have a recovery. This service that you're using, maybe you don't actually share any folders off, or maybe you do on that one, but on another one, you actually have a bunch of connected devices. So just going through this checkup at least once gives you an idea of what to do. All right, let's jump over to my browser that I've got my Microsoft stuff loaded up in that we were taking a look at. And there it is. There is my OneDrive with different stuff, and Microsoft uses little dots, and you can get into all the little apps and everything that you want to get into. But over here, we want to take a look. There is settings. Now, this little settings gear is always for whatever application you're in. So if I went over to Copilot, the settings gear would be for Copilot. So here's your OneDrive settings. And notice here's restore your OneDrive because there's automatic backups. And then there's sync this OneDrive. And of course, that's there because I do have it synced to my different devices. And if I hit that right there, if I hit it, it'll say, oh, okay, I'm going to push all these updates down to their device. So let's take a look. There's really not too much in the OneDrive settings. These are the notifications I'm going to be notified on. Going to more settings, and I'm going to take a look. Notice here we've got access requests and invitations. That means somebody has requested access, or I have sent an invitation for somebody to get that. So let's go ahead and take a look at that particular item. Pending, no, there's nothing. I'm all up to date, but I'll show you the history. So I shared some stuff out so I could get it. These are both mine, right? So this person could contribute on this, but no longer. It's expired. It's expired. So there's your access requests in here. And of course, I could set a new one. I could do that. That is one of the things. And that, again, oh man, it gets really huge. That's what I should say, because this is OneDrive. So this is access requests for OneDrive. Now, I want to look at some devices. So that's under different settings. I need to go over to view the account, my Microsoft account. I have a couple of accounts, but this is the one I use for school. And so, hey, welcome back, James. Here's your account. This is who you are. This is what's going up. This is, wow, let's take a look at stuff. It's kind of cool. I mean, I never look at it, but whatever. But here I've got security info. Let me take a look. What kind of security info are you going to offer me, Microsoft? What's going to be here? I've got to approve my two-factor authentication. That only goes to one device, which is the one I'm holding right here. So it doesn't appear on any other devices. Type that in, it stares at my face, and then it lets us in. Now that's very common once you're really accessing different things with inside of your preferences or your account settings. It often will say you need to relog in. You need to relog in. So they're trying to make sure that a hacker's not going through it at that time. So there it is. There's my Microsoft Authenticator right there. Now notice this one. That actually is my old phone. And this is gone now. And actually, it was just 2 days ago. And it's totally erased. It's totally done. There's no Microsoft Authenticator on there. But you know what? I should not have that available. So that is directly tied to that hardware of that phone. So that was deleted, but that's okay. The one that I just used is right here in front of my face. And then look, there's my backup email address right here. So that if something goes wrong, I can have that sent to my backup. And let's look at devices. Devices is what we were referring to before. And there's my 12 Pro phone that as I said, a couple of days ago, got rid of. There's a computer. I believe this is the machine on my desk. This is the lectern, the computer I log into in the lab all the time. My iPad Pro and a Windows machine here. And my new phone is not on here yet. And so I will leave this active, and then I'll log in on my new phone, and then I'll delete this. Come over here and disable that. Just to disable it. But notice this ID, right? So that is tied directly to that. And again, that phone is totally erased. There's really not an easy way for a person to then just all of a sudden pull up my data, because I erased the whole thing. However, I still don't want this old one hanging around. So that's what I was going to show you in this video. We will get into more details in the other video, and we'll go through Apple. We'll go through a few of them because it's the same stuff, but it looks different. And they do have some different options in those. But again, what you're trying to learn is, oh, there's these things that I need to worry about, which is on this page. And every single one of these services has something for this. And I need to go in and find it and make sure everything's okay there. If you want any specifics, let me know. And if I'm using the service, I'll show you. Also, in the other video, we're going to go through other things like a lot of different cloud storages out there that are not Google or Microsoft and the different features they have. All right, thanks for watching. Take care of yourselves. Be safe out there.